Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming to the webinar, Community to Cash, Building Social Media Marketing Campaigns That Drive Revenue. So as I say on the airplane, if that's not what you're trying to do, then you're in the wrong webinar. But hopefully you have joined us on purpose. And we have a really interesting topic, which I think everyone's trying to get to. How do you get money from your social media marketing? And for that, we're going to have a bit of a real-life example, a case study. And joining me is Anita Root. She is the Director of Member Communications and Engagement for Club Carlson. We'll explain what that is in a moment for the Americas. And Josh Gunderson, who's the Manager of Campaigns and Communications for Carlson Residor Group. I'm going to come back to them and their roles in a minute, but I want to set up some quick business here. Number one, we are taking questions throughout. We have people on the team monitoring Twitter. So the best way to submit a question is to use the hashtag. And the hashtag you can see at the bottom of every slide is SocialRev. So hashtag SocialRev. You can hit us on Twitter at IgniteSMA if you'd like, but we are monitoring the hashtag, and we will be also live tweeting from IgniteSMA handle. My Twitter handle is jtobin, and we're here with Anita and Josh. So today, before we get to Anita and Josh introducing themselves a little bit more, I want to tell you the agenda for the day, and the hour should be less than an hour. We're going to start with a sort of higher level overview of how what Carlson Residor Hotel Group is, and how Josh and Anita look at their jobs and their roles, how they set priorities at a high level. Then we'll look at the channel strategies that bubble up to those higher level priorities, and then we'll look at the promotional strategies that bubble up as well, and from there we'll be able to wrap it up with the key learnings. So that's the plan for the time together. All of this will be recorded and uploaded to YouTube for sharing, and we will send you an email afterward with the deck and the link for the upload, so you'll all get that as well. So with that, I want to go back to Anita and Josh, and if you guys could each tell us a little bit about what you do and how your roles fit in, and if you could start a little bit with what Carlson Residor Hotel Group is and what Club Carlson is. And then maybe, Anita, you could start.
Sure, thank you. Well, most simply, we're the loyalty program for 5 of the brands of the Carlson Residor Hotel Group. It's Radisson Blu, Radisson, Park Plaza, Park Inn, and Country Inns and Suites. But I think a little history will help you all understand how we got here. We had a loyalty program for Carlson Hotels, and it was called Gold Points Plus. And it became a global loyalty program in 2007 as a result of the partnership with Residor. And then fast forwarding to March of 2011, that's when the program was relaunched and we became known as Club Carlson. So continuing the loyalty program but under a new name. And as part of that relaunch, there was a plan to assist with that, to have a social media strategy. And in the beginning, we just largely managed that ourselves. And the program then continued to grow, acquisition of members and many activities. And in 2012, we began a more robust partnership on the social media front with Ignite. And I think it was in around April of 2012 that you started doing our community management. And then we were, at that same time, we were working on a joint strategy for how are we going to do it in the next short term and how are we going to set ourselves up long term. So that's how we got to where we are today.
Excellent. Thank you. And Josh?
Yeah, so specifically what I do for Club Carlson is I manage the consumer-facing campaigns, traditional and social, and then I manage our social channels. And currently, our primary social networks are Facebook and Twitter. We have a blog that we are planning to launch in the next month or so. We also have secondary channels. We have pages claimed, kind of a stake in the ground in Google Plus and YouTube, but we don't really have a defined strategy in those channels yet. And we're also exploring expanding our social reach into China because we have a number of properties in the pipeline over there. So we're exploring maybe Sina Weibo for that.
Great. And I think Josh is one important member who manages our social media and traditional promotion type of work. But we also have individuals in our group of the member communication and engagement team that handle email marketing, everything you see on clubcarlson.com, and a lot of the operational pieces of getting members their credentials when they join the program and engage, and all the operational support to make all of those things happen. So all of the touch points to make sure that the members want to be loyal to the brands, loyal to our loyalty program and then just come back again and again.
Excellent. So you have a unique situation. You have Club Carlson, which is over 5 different brands. You have well-known brands like Radisson and Country Inn and Suites, brands that are a little less well-known like Park Plaza and Park Inn, and you have location-based, obviously, locations all across the globe. I believe over 1,000 hotels around the world. So that's the sort of landscape we find ourselves in. And so we've talked about what are our priorities for social media, and we list them here. So creating brand awareness, evolving brand perception, engaging customers directly, fostering loyalty, and generating revenue. And when we talked about this yesterday, Anita, we talked about how a lot of brands could have those 5 priorities for social media. But how is it different for Club Carlson maybe than it might be for Radisson or Park Inn or one of the brands?
Yep, sure. That's absolutely right. We all have these same flavors to what our goals are and what our direction is, but we start at a different place. I think all of us go right to number 5. We should be generating revenue for the hotel brands. But then certainly for Club Carlson, our emphasis is more on fostering loyalty and engaging the customers, and all of that is to continue to drive the brand awareness and the brand perception. And I think we're lucky in that we can reach out to what the brands are doing at any given time, take some of their meetings or some of their messages, and then socialize it for our Club Carlson members, and vice versa. So I think we're able to pass things back and forth and encourage, sharing of information across all of our brand sites.
Excellent. And like I said, I think any category can use these 5 priorities broadly. It just depends, do people really know you? Are you a household name brand or not? If you're a household name brand, do you have to improve what people think of you? Those kind of things. How do people buy from you? How do they communicate with you? So figuring out what you do within these priorities is really where the art of it comes from. And that leads us right into the next phase of this, which is turning your priorities into action items. So Josh, maybe if you want to start on this slide, Anita, you can chime in as well, but how do we go from priorities to what we're actually doing day to day?
Right. I think when we look at these priorities, they're in a bit of priority order because I think we knew that we need to build the channels before the revenue would come. So, these first 3 blocks, the awareness, the perception, and the engagement, those strategies needed to come first before we could go into strategies that were specifically designed to drive revenue. We still have, a content mix that is designed to drive revenue, but we knew first of all that the brand awareness had to come first. We had to activate these channels in order to get where we needed to go on revenue. So fans had to come first, engagement had to come first, and then we know that revenue would come if we were diligent in our approach. And
revenue has come. So we see here as we look at this, we see the difference between Q2 of 2012 and at the end of the year, well, using this time period anyway, roughly a year working with us, the Q1 2013. So, Anita, what surprised you about this chart other than the giant red bar at the right?
Well, that was a nice big red bar. I think what we found is that it was interesting that all of the different pieces that we started to build with, one could just naturally come next, that we found the right mix of messaging that got the brand awareness out there, and the next thing became natural. And I think the revenue showed up maybe a little sooner than we thought, but we were certainly glad that that happened. And we know that it's just a trajectory that we have to move forward with as well. Because now that bar is not high enough. We need it to be bigger. So
that's right. The scale of the chart continually changes, doesn't it?
Right. And I think we use things like promoted posts and different things that we found to be much more. That's when you started to see some of the real activity starting. So using different tools at different times.
Yeah, so promoted posts, it's not something you do every day by any stretch of the imagination, but does account for a percentage of the revenue, but considerably less than half. So what do you feel like the percentage, the role of promoted posts versus straight organic engagement is in contributing to this chart?
Well, I think it's really important because it adds some variety. And I think if we just went the organic route, it would soon become really boring, and people would look away, and they would find interesting offers from another group of hotel properties and a different loyalty program. So I think we want to keep things changing. We want to make sure the message is relevant, and I think we always want to go to where the members are. So if this is where they want it, we will make sure that we put that information out there and change it up to make it relevant.
Yeah, and offers are very relevant when you're in the market. I mean, that's one of the whole reason we do normal traditional advertising as well. But this has gone extremely well. It's very hard to set a goal when you're accelerating as rapidly as you are, 200 and almost 300% rise in revenue over just the prior quarter. But because of that, you exceeded your revenue projections for the year in the first quarter. So Josh, did you get giant raises and carry through the hallways of Carlson on people's shoulders?
Not quite, but we did get a pat on the back. But yeah, that was impressive. We didn't start tracking revenue until Q2 of 2012. You can see that's where we started on that graph. And then in Q1, we just see this explosion, due to wise use of our dollars and promoted posts. We also had a very attractive promotion in the marketplace, so we could put some of those promoted post dollars behind that. And that was our first social or Facebook exclusive promotion called I'm a Fan that I think we'll touch on later. But yeah, it's really exceeded all expectations at this point. And the revenue from this chart is only direct revenue. So this is only click to conversion revenue. It doesn't include any post impression revenue where someone would come to our sites and then they maybe go back and book at a later date or call a reservation center at a later date. And then conversely, I think the direct revenue that we track only tells us when something trips the trigger. So maybe email planted the seed and an online banner ad reinforced that, and then the Facebook post is what kind of sealed the deal and caused the booking. So I mean, we've kind of learned that all of our channels need to work together to drive revenue, regardless of who gets credit for the revenue.
Yeah, I just booked over July 4th at Radisson Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco, actually, and I looked at. You're welcome. I looked at something on my phone, then I looked at something on my tablet, and then I went over to my desktop, and I went. So that's going to be attributed direct revenue. But I saw I have three other communications, but I was moving around devices. There's no way to track it. So the true assisted revenue is probably immeasurable, but it's clearly multiples of what you're able to track here. So, Anita, is this a new normal for the industry?
Well, I think for us, if we start with what I think is happening for us, is now that we've had this success for that year, it's going to be difficult to not difficult to set the goal, but I think the goal will seem we'll want to build at that same kind of level of growth. So I think they'll think we're sandbagging our goals unless we make another really big one. So we have to have a really good strategy for next year. And I would imagine that other hospitality industry type of things have some of the same, not growing pains, but as you start doing it and it takes off like really fast, wow, how do you set year 2 and how do you set year 3? And when does it become kind of steady state? But we know it's a long way from steady state, but it's fun right now.
Yeah, so I think everyone's got their appetite whetted that, in fact, you can see measurable improvement. So let's talk about how you did it. Going to channel strategies first, and what you learned on, let's focus on Facebook and Twitter primarily. So what's working on Facebook? What isn't working? What are you evolving towards? What have we learned together over the last year?
I think as far as content, we always knew that we wanted to have a blend of content that was engagement type posts and posts that asked people to go to our sites and book. So we knew that strategy going in, that we couldn't hit people over the head with marketing messages all the time. We had to find that right way to engage with our audience. And we tried a number of things when we were managing this on our own that were working to mild success. We tried like Program 101, kind of illustrate what we do and what our program is, travel tips, fun facts. But we realized we were missing one key ingredient, and we kind of stumbled upon this with a happy accident. When Facebook converted to timeline, remember we had all those pods underneath the cover image, and one of those was photos, and it takes the last photo that you upload, and we were uploading all this historical graphics and things like that, and it wasn't very attractive. So in an effort to kind of pre-populate that with something that looked good, we uploaded one of our property photos. It was a resort in Fiji, and within like an hour we had hundreds of likes, which was huge at the time. So that was a big watershed moment for us, that the photos are what really helps our audience engage with our brand. And I think that strategy, we've carried it forward. So everything we do now, we still have those same kind of things, maybe travel tips, but they're integrated into photos, and we're always trying to have visually engaging content as well as just, straight information.
I think it's easy for a lot of brands to forget why we're on Facebook. We're on Facebook to be entertained and to stalk our ex-girlfriend and to, make fun of the person from high school who hasn't aged well, or whatever we're doing on there. It's very much a leisure activity, and so this kind of thing, this kind of photo here is very aspirational, and you can immediately say, oh, I would love to be there right now, rather than living on my sofa. So I think that makes sense. So in terms of measuring, you mentioned measuring success. So here is some actual data from your engagement rates over the last year, and you can see here we're looking at average post virality and average engagement rate. So it's also got a nice up and to the right sort of trend line to it. Anita, what do you take from this?
Well, I just think that the things we've tried have been successful, and it keeps building. The next one we learn a little bit more, and the team from Ignite helps us figure out, okay, the next twist we should try is this. And I think being able to be willing to try a couple things, if it's on maybe a standard promotion or a traditional promotion, this is what seems to resonate well. And then the next time, that's not the right tactic for the next thing we decide to do. And we revert back to the things that had some pretty good appeal and then add a little bit of a twist to it. So I think it's just ongoing, adjusting as we go.
Absolutely, and keeping an eye on these numbers. I don't think enough people look at numbers like this, because now we know that your fans are more engaged than ever before, and so our average daily reach is up 38%, and our average social actions is up 116%. So when we can see data like that, we're improving our edge rank, we're improving the chance that those offer-based posts are going to reach a larger number of people, because we're not just hitting them with offer-based posts, because we're mixing up that content.
And I think too, we had goals that were very simple at the beginning. It was just number of fans. But as soon as you figure out how, there's a way to get fans, but you don't only want fans, you want them to be engaged fans. And then you just get a little bit better as you go along.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of times when people buy fans through either a straight ad buy or through a off-topic promotion, and they end up getting a potentially large number of fans who are either geographically undesirable or don't care about the product, and you see your edge rank plummet, and you can get in a spiral.
Right.
So let's switch gears and talk about Twitter a little bit. Twitter's a completely different ballgame. I saw, on the Facebook page of 117,000 followers, and Twitter 8,000. So what's working? What isn't working here? How are we evolving?
Yeah, I think to be honest, we've had a bit of a lack of focus on Twitter, or lack of energy on Twitter. We really haven't stumbled on the content that's really moving the needle. I think the similar kind of content is doing well, but with the number of followers we have, we're not seeing the growth that we saw on Facebook. So I think one of the challenges for us on Twitter is that there are no photos in the stream. They're always a click away. And like I said, that was our most engaging content, was our property shots. I guess one thing that is working that we found that we didn't anticipate is Twitter became a portal for customer care. And we had to kind of, think things through and kind of shift things around in our customer care to address that. But it's been good. People have been able to respond, in fairly real time, I guess.
Right.
So that's been a good benefit. I think another thing is we haven't put a lot of dollars behind Twitter with any promoted products. We just started doing that in this first quarter. and we didn't have any real Twitter-only promotions. So I think we have a couple of those in the works, and hopefully we'll see some growth on that.
Absolutely, but I think I hear you saying, we're recognizing that the channel is really good at different things in Facebook, and in my view, news does very well on Twitter. Customer support, as you mentioned, does very well on Twitter, but some of the construct is a little different. So the tweets that do best for us, I think we've got them categorized into 3 buckets here.
Right. So I think similar to what we're kind of the same content mix that we're seeing on Facebook at this time, but we're just not seeing the same kind of volume on engagement and the responses, retweets.
Right. So I think there is a lot of clarity here, what you want people to do. Retweet it, ask for it. I mean, we're talking about 2, 2, and 7 here, so not like these are going viral by any stretch, but being clear about what we want people to do. And as a result, our engagement rates are increasing, somewhat similar to what we see on Facebook. We're dealing off of a much smaller base, but it's important to see the trend line. And what you can't tell from just this chart is that there's a 234% rise in impressions based on changing our cadence and engaging our followers better in 2013 than we did even in Q4. So you see the same retweets, replies, clicks in aggregate, but we're starting to see a big rise in impressions. So that's a good start.
And I think what helps us in some of these too is being able to look at the content from the hotel brands. Years or months ago when we'd be in meetings, it was like, oh, we just kind of talk about what they're doing next. Now we're like, oh, well, if you guys tweet that, then we're going to grab that and put it on our site and make sure that it goes around. So I think we have a very well-oiled machine in getting information between the various Twitter accounts.
Yeah, and it's interesting how your approach is going to be different from even Radisson's, for example.
Sure.
I was going to say one of the recent insight that we learned is the ratio of revenue to followers is the same ratio of revenue to fans that we have on Facebook. So we've identified Twitter as a huge opportunity area for revenue growth, and that's why we have to put some focus and some time and effort to some programs that might drive that, get the fan count up there, the follower count up there. And currently we have a promotion that's moved the needle a little bit. We just launched it this week, but it's a flash sale for gold points, and it's announced exclusively on Facebook and Twitter. And we're noticing the blogs are picking up, and we're getting the right kind of behavior that we anticipated. And people are saying, follow Club Carlson on Twitter because you'll find out like in real time when this 75-minute flash sale goes live. So we've seen a little bit of a spike. We won't know until the campaign's run its course, but things like that are helpful, that are exclusive, an exclusive reason to follow us on Twitter.
Absolutely, that's the channel promise, the exchange. If you follow us, what will you get? So let's switch. Let's get out of promotions. Get out of channels and talk a little bit about the kinds of promotions and what you get out of that. So switching quickly over to triple points promotions. Why is this successful?
I think this was successful because this is a great global promotion for us. It performed well for us across all channels, but I think we had some great engaging content that really worked well for social. So we had these great shareable infographics that supported a great offer and made it fun. We also put some promoted post dollars behind that, so we saw a lot of success from this, kind of putting all our efforts to make sure that this is successful from all channels.
This is the whole switch in content and brands. 5 years ago, a brand never would have done something like this with the cheetah and the runners and the stopwatch. It's a new way of recognizing what makes people pause in that news feed and take a look at something.
Right.
So
yeah, absolutely. And the way we would announce a promotion in the past would be text only with the link out to our brand website to book or register. This just makes it a lot more engaging.
So this is one of my favorites, but explain to everyone what I'm a Fan was and how it worked and what we saw.
All right. So for I'm a Fan, we wanted to grow our Facebook fan base, and at the beginning we seriously underestimated what an individual would do to get 1,000 points, because that's what the whole gist of the offer was. Become a fan of ours, and we'll give you 1,000 points. So members first, if they weren't a member, they needed to go create an account, and then like us on Facebook, and then they got their 1,000 points. Well, we had some nefarious types who thought maybe if they created 1,000 accounts, they could then combine them later and get all kinds of points. So we had a little bit of, quite a bit of work to do at the beginning to stop that type of behavior. So it was a lesson learned. We do know that after we took care of that issue, that it delved nicely, and we did get a lot of the results that we were intended to have. So I think Josh can talk to a little bit about what we saw for the results.
Yeah, I think the growth was phenomenal. If you look, the goal of the program was to leverage our database. We have great numbers, I think, on our Facebook page, but they're nowhere close to what we have in our email database or our member base. So we just try to leverage some of those people to come over and get the information. So we saw the growth was tremendous, and then the engagement that followed was surprising, I think, too. We saw increased engagement rates, and then we saw that huge spike in revenue in Q1, which I think was attributed to this as well as our Triple Points campaign.
Yeah, and I think this is something that brands don't do enough of. A lot of brands have bigger email lists than fan bases, or bigger customer bases than fan bases. And I'll ask people, will you send an email just asking your customers to become fans? And they say, well, we did. And when you look at the email, it's the 5th link down in a long newsletter, and that drives almost no results. I've seen this, but a standalone program like this, or a standalone email saying become a fan, and you had a small incentive that was apparently a big incentive for some people, really gets people to, yeah, why wouldn't I do this? And so as a result,
and I think we learned some real valuable lessons too. Certainly that we know that what extents they will go to for 1,000 points. But I think the other thing is we will do an acquisition campaign like that again. We just will put different fences around it, and maybe the first reach will only be to our existing members. Then you don't have that loophole for someone to try to build something that can create 1,000 new accounts, and with the hopes of merging them. So I think we'll continue. We want that group to grow, but we'll do it having learned something valuable from our last foray.
Yes, and interestingly, I mean, it's not the first time you've given away points for things, it's just the first time on social media, and we didn't see that kind of rabid enthusiasm that we saw for this. So, things are
right.
Different channel, different behavior.
Yep,
so,
exactly.
And as a result, we see huge jumps in your Facebook fan base. So is it important, talk about fan growth and how it impacts reach?
Well, yeah, I think we know that we want to grow the fan base. That's priority number one. But we want to grow it with quality fans. We want the fans that come to engage with the page, because we know that the reach isn't going to be impacted by this because of the Facebook algorithms. But so I think this was successful. It was a huge spike, but we also got the right kind of fans that continue to engage with the page. I think one learning that we kind of had after this is we maybe should have had a follow-up to this, to an activity for these new fans to do now that they came, to make sure that they engaged. So we were lucky that they did, but we didn't really have a program in place for them to engage.
Excellent. And so let's keep going in the key learnings and insights here. First, you guys are really good at this cross-pollination thing.
Well, I think it's because when we create this marketing plan, or what we want to do for the next calendar year period of time, we lay out all of the tools that we kind of have in our little toolbox. And we know that a lot of things start with a big consumer-facing promotions, but we know that we have to support that in all channels. And now it's becoming more important how we do that in the social media channels. But then we want to support them also with email and online banner ads, things like that. One size doesn't fit all. And that's just the example of a traditional promotion. And we know that we want to do more sculpted promotions, more targeted to the right audience, maybe only on a certain type of platform, like maybe only social media type of promotion. So we have a lot of opportunities, and we just have to sculpt the right one each time.
Excellent. And measurements. What do you need to do to get the kind of chart from a measurement standpoint?
Yeah, I think you're right. Measurement requires discipline, so we have to put a unique tracking code on every time that we link to one of our pages for conversion, and we have to do that on email. We have to do that on our web marquees, and there might be some overlap with some of these. But I think that's valuable to look at. But like we mentioned before, with all these different impressions, you're not exactly sure who's doing all the work. You're just giving credit to the last click-through, to drive that revenue.
And hopefully over time we'll all, as a sort of industry, get better at multi-touch attribution too, which will never be perfect because of telephones and booking in person and all those other things, but at least we can get a more complete picture, because right now a lot of brands, if you look at just straight last touch attribution, it looks like search did all the work, but there's a reason people searched. So let's talk about the content, the reason people search. They see good content. So talk about your mix here.
Yeah, I think the mix, we want to have content that's engaging. So we want to have content that people are interacting with and liking and retweeting and answering questions and sharing out. And we want to feature our properties and show the scope of our brand and feature, like you said, these 1,000 properties that we have in 77 countries. We want to highlight the brands equitably and show that we have different brands and educate on that. We want to share the brand-specific promotions. We want to, if they have any initiatives, I mean, we can't have too much noise on the page, but that's the way that it's a two-way street with all the brands having their individual Facebook pages and Twitter handles. And then we also want to have, our promotions, and we pepper in our marketing content that we drive people to our websites to drive revenue. That works well, but if we have the engagement, we know that the marketing messages have more impact.
Absolutely, which gets us to the next place, which is the classic, if my slide would advance, chicken and egg question.
Yeah.
So what about do you get, pressure for the egg, or are people comfortable with the chicken, or what do you see from your higher ups?
Well, I think when we set up our goals for a year, there's always the hotel, supporting the hotel brands getting revenue in the door, but we know that this is one of the ways we do it. So I think as we layer out 2 lines in our listing out of goals, it's going to become more interesting as that number gets bigger and you show year-over-year increases, and the question will be, shouldn't it be bigger than that, and couldn't it be faster than that? And I think as long as we have a real solid plan, we'll be comfortable adding a very nice stretch goal and seeing how we can get to many of those things. And I think we have to stay really on top of what kind of messages are resonating well, and being willing to abandon one if it stops being effective. Because I think if it changed fast, we have to be able to change just as fast and go where our members are sitting on what social media networks and what's working well for them at the time.
Yeah, and you talked earlier about measurement and how you're only capturing a small percentage and with last touch attribution and all that, but you're still doing it. You're still measuring it, and I think too many social media marketers give up and say it's return on engagement or it's some nonsense like that. I mean, if we as marketers can't validate the investment will go away.
Right. And I think, I think back to when, everyone first started talking about booking of maybe airline seats or car rental companies or something online, and you always thought, oh, there'll be some people that'll do that, but it won't ever be the lion's share, right? And now it's just so natural, you don't even think of it anymore that's not what the norm is. So I think we have to prepare ourselves for something revolutionary like that this becomes very core, and you just have to manage it like you do all your other channels.
Right. I mean, is there anybody who, if they could go back 10 years, would not increase the investment they made in their website?
I don't believe so.
Right. So yeah, and then you get these kind of results. And yeah, we showed the chart before, but it's a pretty chart.
It's a very nice chart.
Hockey stick.
Right. Oh goodness.
So
and I think
with that,
we want. Yeah, I think we want this type of chart when we talk about this year. We'd like to see a 2014 bar that's certainly growing at a same type of rate, and we'll be very happy when we look back and say, oh, do you remember when we started and it was just a little nit? We're like, yeah, but Josh did all those good things so we could make that chart bigger and bigger as we went along. So I know it's coming.
So with that, I want to take questions from the group. If there are any that have come in, and I'm trying to find my document that they've sent me for questions. I do have a couple coming in here. So how can you look to achieve the same goals for a smaller brand that doesn't have as large a following as Club Carlson? What would your advice be if you had to do this for a brand that didn't have quite the reach of your current job?
I think I'll just add a couple things, and Josh can fill in where I haven't answered correctly. But I think it's like the first piece is really trying to get some amount of awareness out there. And maybe there should probably be somebody that you benchmark, either in your industry or a similar industry or someone of a same size of company, and try to see what seems to work well, and then try to recraft that for who you are. If it's a little bit more unique messaging, is it very standard what your offer is? I think you have to figure out like what's interesting for that member. So I don't know if it comes through a little bit of surveying or just kind of being a voyeur out there and watching what's going on.
Yeah, and I think what we've learned is there's really not a one-size-fits-all strategy for all brands. So, and our brand, online booking is part of what we sell here, and it's fairly common. So if you sell something that doesn't have that option, like a motorcycle or shampoo or something, your strategy might be a little different, and the way that you measure revenue might be a little different.
Absolutely. And somebody asked that, how do you measure this if your product is not driven by online transactions? You have the ability to click right through to cart, so to speak. That's not true of some of our other clients. Chrysler brand vehicles aren't sold in shopping carts on websites. Neither is some of the consumer packaged goods that we work with. So thoughts on how you might be able to do that?
I think it's kind of, if you're not going to buy something at the end of your transaction, it's maybe, are people talking about you? And is it getting out into the group that you think are the influencers of the ones who are then going to go out and buy the car or something like that? So I think it's figuring out what your awareness campaign is, and where do you intend to reach, and how do you measure where those messages are going out, and how many people see them.
Yeah, I think that links back to traditional advertising, where you had channels that you really couldn't measure, like television and print and things like that. And you just have to have a sound strategy and trust that all these things are working together and that you're getting the response that you need. Whether it's if direct revenue is not possible, you have to look for what the response, the desired response is.
Mm-hmm. And it might be like
Absolutely.
Our benchmark, where we had a hard time figuring out what the real revenue would have been. It might be as you're building or as you're growing to something, it's trying to figure out how big is reasonable. If you think, oh, you're going to get 1 million followers in a year, that might just be unrealistic. So make it reasonable, but have a stretch goal so people want to attain it and things like that.
Yes, and I put this slide up so you can get this bit.ly here, measure social ROI with bit.lys are case sensitive, so get that right. But there are 6 models in here for measuring when you cannot track to shopping cart. So that might be helpful for the person who had that question. But Jennifer online asked, with such a big increase in revenue and engagement, how do you manage expectations with your higher-ups?
I think we had a very sound strategy going into this. When we talk about those 5 priorities, we were whoever sold the idea of social media did a great job of saying, revenue, we shouldn't have high expectations for revenue right off the bat. We have to kind of grow this, and we have to show the other value of getting into social media. So things like the ability to solve problems, the ability to humanize your brand and to directly engage with your customers. Those are just as valuable as the revenue that we're going to see. So at this point, we've been able to manage those expectations as far as revenue, and I think everyone's pretty much on board with our strategy.
Yeah, and you also don't have a trend line yet, so we don't know if it's seasonal. We don't know. There's an awful lot we don't know. But another question from Twitter.
I have heard the word sandbagging, that they said maybe our goal, maybe we should have made a goal, and we're like, well, yeah, but we didn't. So we know we'll have to make a goal going forward, and I'm sure it will have a large increase attached to it. So we have our work cut out for us.
Yeah. Another question on Twitter was, you talked about photos being a big draw. Have you all used video with any success? If not, do you have plans to do so?
Yeah, I think we'd love to. We're a bit video challenged right now, and I think there's bigger initiatives right now to upload or update our portfolio of photos. I think we have some property shots that aren't represented well and that could be represented better. So I think photos will come. I know if the video aspect would come, but I think that would probably come from the brand level. So like Radisson, that would be the Radisson initiative. It would perhaps bubble up to us that we could share those. But yeah, I think there's a huge opportunity there.
Absolutely, and you see Vine now being increasingly being used and getting pretty decent engagement actually, and if you believe news reports on the 20th, which is tomorrow I think, is when supposedly Facebook/Instagram will announce that Instagram will allow you to do short videos like Vine. So some of the challenges there with Vine go to approvals and saving and drafts. I mean, we could get you can't really get each of the 1,000 hotels to do a Vine showing their rooms because there's no way to save them and send them over to somebody right now. You can either put them on Vine and send them out, or you're out of luck. So hopefully we'll see maybe with Instagram or with some other platform the ability to do these sort of shorter videos across the globe and still kind of manage them, manage the cadence and put them all in one place. So hopefully that'll be there as well. But with that, I think we are winding down. So I don't know if anyone has any additional questions, or what would be your closing point that you would make, Anita and Josh, on thinking about revenue and thinking about how you approach this?
Well, I think it's that when you develop your tactics and you start building a plan of strategies of what you want to do, have in mind what you think is going to happen, and put like a little revenue teaser out there and see if you can accomplish it with a smaller initiative, and then just keep building on that so you can kind of learn as you go along and roll one into another and make the next one a little bit better yet.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I would add that I think engagement needs to come first, and I think you need to build that base and engage that base and interact. And you can't force someone to book and convert on your site. So you have to, when the time is right, you have to pepper those messages in and make them valuable to your engaged base. But I think the engagement comes first.
Absolutely, totally agree. I like the approach also of using all of your social assets, not your social assets, all of your assets from a marketing standpoint to support one another. I think that's a good take-home lesson as well. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up and give everybody 15 minutes or so of their day back. But I want to thank you, Anita and Josh, for being here and sharing your example with everybody. For our guests, you will get a follow-up email with the recording if you want to share it with others in your organization, as well as a copy of the white paper and a link to the slides.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye, everyone.